Good morning or good afternoon from wherever you're dialing in from. Thank you for joining our fourth in our summer webinar series, our fourth and final webinar that we're doing on reports. And so our title is Narrative Reports or Narrative Reporting or Regular Reports and kind of what that means. So just a real quick thing about US Analytics. Thank you for joining our webinar. US Analytics has been in the Oracle EPM space for over 20 years. We do implementations, roadmaps, evaluating your current systems or helping you move to your next solution. And this is Jennifer Conard. I work in the support services team. I'm the VP of Client Success for US Analytics, and I've been with the company for almost 10 years, but I do have a lengthy experience in Oracle EPM. So I know a lot of different tools throughout the years. Today's webinar will be delivered by Don Seitz. So I will let Don introduce himself, and then Melinda can chime in real quick. The other webinars that we've done from Bill, Melinda and myself have done a few, and then Melinda did the OCI migration last week. All of these will be available on our website to download if you want to catch up on any of those. Anyway, I was just getting to the point that Melinda will introduce herself before we get started, but I'll start with Don. Are you on, Don?
I am here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning. So hello, everyone. I'm Don Seitz. I've been a consultant with US Analytics for over 2 years now. And my background is more in accounting, financial, corporate accounting, public accounting, but been working in the Hyperion space going back to the late 90s, 98, 99, and done a ton of reporting, mostly for corporate SEC, internal reporting. And so, yeah, I've seen a lot of technology, the people processes, and I guess I'd say some of the gaps between what technology does and what sort of companies and how they use it. So it's what I like is people. I'm extroverted, the process, and trying to align technologies with all that. So, I've worked in many multi-million-dollar companies, probably the last 20 years. And so graduating to consulting is great for me, and I try to help out companies where I can.
Thanks, Don. Yeah, and you are you have been a prior controller. You've been in the reporting space for a lot of your career, so you are definitely our expert when it comes to reports, and we're definitely glad to have you. Thanks for the update. Okay, Melinda, you want to just say hi real quick?
Of course. Hey, everybody. This is Melinda McGew. Been with US Analytics for about 6 years now, and I am the planning lead for our support team. And I'm just here to chime in and add my 2 cents every now and then. But Don is going to take the lead, and I'll try to be quiet.
Right.
I like to talk a lot.
Chime in. And if you were on last week's webinar, it was really good. We had feedback where people were updating things in the chat, or even coming off mic and updating or adding content and color to our commentary in our presentation, and it was very, very good and useful. So if you have questions, feel free to put those in the chat. Melinda will be monitoring that. And so before we get started, I did just want to note that a lot of the information that we will cover today is actually from Oracle's website, and we do have a disclaimer at the end that what we've compiled together is largely in part from our experience and our exposure of the clients that we support. But then also, we added onto that things that we found useful from Oracle's site. So, part of what we do in the support team and at US Analytics is to help guide clients. So when we support them, we guide them with best practices and or do support, from A to Z. So we do a lot of different things. But again, we do have important links at the end of the presentation, which you will get. And those, I think most of those will take you to Oracle's site. There are a few that are pretty good YouTube little 3-minute clips. So anyway, you will see those. So before we get started, we always start our day at US Analytics and our support team. We start with a daily huddle every morning. So we gather around the water cooler, if you will, the virtual water cooler, and tell some jokes. So I'm going to start our session off with some ocean riddles. So the first one: what would we get if we threw all the books in the ocean? Does anyone know? That would be a tidal wave. So I thought that was kind of fun. And maybe a kid joke. So you might want to tell, if you have young children, that's a good joke to share with them. And our next joke is: what does the sand say when the tide came in? The sand, what does the sand say? High tide. That's not the answer, but that's a good guess. Long time no see. I like your answer too.
So I like that answer better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are good. Those are good to tell your kids or whatnot, or tell your spouse or whatever. Okay. Thanks for playing our going along with our kind of lame jokes. But anyway, brings light to the day, and just sometimes our jobs are pretty serious, so it's nice to start the day off with some jokes. So, all right. Again, about reporting and just a little bit about US Analytics and our strategic managed support. We not only enhance your experience with your EPM solutions, but we also help clients with their solutions, helping them roadmap their next digital transformation and provide best practice guidance on what you already have. And so Dawn and Melinda and myself, we are part of the team. We have a pretty large dedicated team. We do have some fractional folks, but we are a large team that supports our clients on a lot of different variety of tool sets, all of it Oracle EPM. So here is how we help with reporting. And so Dawn, the stage is yours.
All right. So I was just going to point out too, if anyone wants to ask questions, they can stop me, or you can use the Teams chat too. Last week was nice because people would post a question there and we try to get back to it or get a discussion going on it, but just a reminder of that. So what is report? So, well, isn't it Excel? But when we're talking Oracle, yeah, a little bit Excel, but there's a history with Oracle. They used to call, reports, formerly management reporting. Before that, it was FR Studio or FR Reports. I was telling my wife last night some of the stuff. She goes, "Well, it sounds like you mean the FR. The F is for frustrating for reports because it's they're robust production, high quality. You can read the descriptions and what they can enable companies to do pretty much for the end game. After a process, a plan, or a monthly or quarterly close, you have SEC reporting, you have management reporting. And generally in the companies I've been in, and even some of the people on the call, you'll have a reporting book. It could be monthly, it could be quarterly, or you'll have like stock reports. So, and some can be delivered, just in Excel alone, pulling from, the cloud EPM stuff or other sources. But in the reports, what we're going to talk about today is really the function in the EPM platform. So those are, you can read the object based objects that are right in your applications. It used to be called management reporting. Now it's called reports. We're bringing this topic today too because Oracle's updating. They're going to sunset what they call the report writer, the FR Studio style report writer, and they're going to move it into what they just call reports now at a first step. So, in my experience too, I've been accused of doing everything in Excel for reporting, where I also have built what I'll call monthly reporting books, batches, to distribute like similar POBs along, department or along entities or along, repeatable type, I guess, information that needs to be distributed or even archived. So the Oracle report tools, it's good. It gives a lot of flexibility. You can PDFs are some companies like those because they're not really changeable. Where Excel, you can get a lot of errors with formulas and/or people can change an Excel spreadsheet. So
Yeah, and so I did want to ask real quick, in your experience just over the years, would you say that more people use canned reports or reports that are built out of the system, or Excel templates and SmartView?
yeah, so unfortunately, I would say a lot of HS-GET in the earlier days, which is sort of a little bit sunsetted, but even Excel is generally in a corporate accounting world is a favorite tool. And
Okay.
but with SmartView and even with some what I'll call stock EPM reports, that's a better practice because you can start with something as simple as a trial balance and just pull that into Excel from after the report's built. You can but I've seen books are a very nice feature that you can run your P&L, your balance sheet, your cash flow statement right from a book, which are 3 separate reports. And Oracle's evolving there. I don't think that years ago, I mean, FR was a nice functional type tool, but it didn't, I think today you can take books and throw them to Excel. Like 3 or 4 years ago, you couldn't do, some minor things like that. So, I think it's nice to keep in line with what Oracle's doing on, the tools and call it, reporting. I think they got some direction that for years, I would say it was sort of, it's FR, it's SmartView and HS-GET, and that's what I predominantly used in companies I worked at. So,
Okay. All right. That's good. All right. Well, I'm going to go to the next slide here.
yeah. So we got some definitions here, which, yeah, when we say FR, that means financial reports, and it's still, in the applications in the cloud. And we're pretty much talking about cloud applications here. If you're on 11.2 or 11.1 even, there's no change to the FR Classic Studio reports. The management reports are now Oracle's calling reports. They're sort of the next gen reports in the clouds. And the other term you'll hear from Oracle, and we'll talk about here, is narrative reporting, which is taking the game up a little bit. It's almost a separate type, call it application in your EPM apps area. And so it's got process control, so you can have many authors, you can have review processes, and then you can have publishing on it. And the one thing with narrative reporting is it allows an enhanced what I'll call notes and annotations. The FR Studio had annotations, not really notes, but you could use annotations as notes. But yeah, those are some definitions. And the other, yeah.
Hey, Don, before you
Mhm.
move on, I
Right.
just wanted to chime in here on the financial reports versus the reports that we're calling it. On FR, it was announced at Kscope this summer that the Oracle roadmap path is to sunset FR. So that's like when you go into like Explore Repository, that Web Studio area within Cloud, that they're planning on sunsetting that around probably December of 2024. So, a little bit over a year. And with that said, if you are a legacy, if your company is a legacy FR user, or legacy, that's where you have all your reports, I'd recommend getting a roadmap for yourself to migrate all of those reports into what the reports area. And I know the language is very confusing because it's like reports, which one's which, where are they? And that can be a little bit confusing. But if you have, if you don't have like one, not a big deal. If you have like 100 and you have lots of books and lots of batches, that will take some time, and you have to be prepared that not every single bit of the functionality will migrate over into reports. For example, if you use same as in your columns, that feature is in FR, but it's not in reports as of right now. What Oracle is trying to do, and this is where their timeline comes from, they're trying to get all of the functionality that's in FR into reports before they sunset and don't allow customers to go in and create reports in that FR area.
Right.
So,
Yeah, good comments. The other thought I have on that, we've seen with a couple of our clients is where people use annotations in the FR reports to collect commentaries. And I've done this in prior companies where, you look at monthly, budget versus actual stuff, and you have people go in to the report and just annotate or keep their comments. That's taken away at the moment in reports. So you have to use narrative reports. It'll be interesting to see if Oracle will make reports include a notes function. So, but that is something, if companies do use annotations currently with FR, it's not in the reports. You have to get into the narrative reports, which is fine, except narrative reports, I think it's like you said, it's about getting your existing reports, migrating them into reports, but then even further going into narrative reports, you got to build a little bit different of a process to get everything in there. So
It sounds like there's some planning involved in kind of where things need to be,
yeah,
or what you need to do to migrate. Okay.
right.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to keep moving. So the question is, which should I use? So that's our
Yeah.
next question. Which one should you
Well,
use?
I think like Melinda was pointing out is don't develop much more in the financial reporting studio type cloud, that application when you go to the report writer. It's get used to using the management reporting or the reports tool and the functionality there.
Mhm.
And yeah, so
I agree with that, Don. And especially if have maybe a newer build, you just came into cloud and you don't really have that many reports, or maybe you don't have reports set up yet at all, I would go ahead and just build them in reports and not financial reports. So you don't want to use the Web Studio, because then you're doubling up on your work, because, after you build it, then you're going to have to migrate it. So you might as well just build it in the reports tool that's within the application itself anyway, to start off with.
right.
That's good. Good advice.
And some of before you even get into options, what I've seen in companies too is, and it's different, some companies are extremely good. I'm going to call it the inventory reports. But, when you look at companies and how the report directories are set up, how many reports are in there, I think it's probably the next year or so is a good time to, do an inventory, cataloging reports, get rid of, the dead wood in there, maybe look for, are they used? Do people actually have a report they can take action with, or is it just something that, is archived more for, research later on or something? So, just cataloging and organizing the reports to get an idea for how you want to migrate them and the level of effort that would that are involved, because it's a, yeah, organizing any computer folder structure is always, can be painful. You can move everything over. I mean, it's not saying you can't do that, but I think when you think reporting options, it's maybe time to look inventory, maybe make a catalog of what reports are intended to do. And
yeah, we talked about housekeeping, and that's one of the activities, obviously, that an administrator would do. And it is painful. And sometimes we think about, obviously we clean our homes. You might give a deep clean, spring cleaning, but sometimes we don't do a good job of either cleaning out or cleaning out our objects in our financial systems or our file folders. But like you mentioned, reports, when you will be migrating to reports, that is a good time to do some housekeeping. And just you brought up some great points about if no one's using a report, why is it out there?
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like, my wife loves gardening, and when she trims rose bushes and that, she'll, you get rid of the deadwood stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah. And then, so going to when does narrative reporting make sense? I think we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I've seen it makes sense when you review your reporting packages and your processes, how many sources, how many authors, how many review levels you have. And I think if you have good answers there, like I've seen, like the controllers group will have what I'll call a deck of reports, and then you'll get an FP&A group that they'll have much more detailed, or budget actual with a lot more discussion analysis on it. So it's it's I think narrative reporting's nice, but I think it makes sense when you review how your reporting packages, how many sources, authors, review levels are needed there. That makes.
Yeah, that's good. Did we have a question?
Yeah, we do have a question. This is a good question. From an end user perspective, is there a difference between the reports created via financial reports versus reports? And just to clarify, I'm interpreting that as the end product, and I would say no, from the end product. Now, the functionality, or at least the if you're an admin from the other side.
Yeah,
so,
but I'm
so
just from an end user.
from the end user, no.
And I'm trying to go in, and if I'm used to running my P&L report, and it was created versus via FR, and now it's created via reports from an end user, do they go to a different spot? Does it look any different for them?
Visually, it won't look different. The navigation, yes, that is different.
Okay.
It's kind of like in a little different folder, if you will. So, if you have, and I'm assuming you're in cloud, when you pull up that reports window on the side, there are 3 icons. There's one that says financial reports, then the next one down is reports, and the next one down is documents. Financial reports at the top is the one that links into your web studio and your legacy FR. The middle one, reports, is the one that links into the app, what is also called like management reporting by some, and just reports in Workspace. And that would be the different navigation. So when you migrate all your reports, that's where they end up, is in that second one.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
Yeah, thanks, Melinda.
All right, why you should be using reports instead of FR? Well, the first thing is because they're going to be sunsetted eventually in 2024. But Don, I'll let you kind of chime in on this.
Yeah, well, I think that's it. It's keeping pace where Oracle's direction is reports now. So, there are some better features, and we listed them out here, and it's maybe I'll comment on some of the differences that there's conditional formatting is different. The member selections are different in reports, but there's again some enhanced features with the new reports. And I would say yeah, with Oracle, you really won't have a choice. So in some
Might as
respects,
well.
yeah, if they're going to sunset the FR, and I think in a lot of companies too, I've seen where more people are recipients of built report versus if you're going in and building them. I know from Linda and I, when we've had to go into reports from the report writer, it's a little bit frustrating, and you feel like you're until you learn the nuances in the the reports versus the report writer. It's it's a little bit tricky to follow. So, but yeah, I would say you should be using reports because the statement of direction, is Melinda mentioned too, and Oracle's been vague for a bunch of years on what they really want to do with FR Studio and their statement of direction. But now I think they're pretty clear with the cloud apps. Of course, the EPM or the 11.2 apps they're going to leave that alone. They won't be adding any more features to FR. So anything they do to enhance reports, will be done in the cloud stuff. So
Yeah.
And we have
do have
we have
that
another
statement
question.
of direction. Oh
Okay.
yeah, go ahead, Melinda.
Sorry. So the question is FR to reports, is it a straightforward lift and shift migration? That's kind of a trick question because the actual task of migrating them, yes, it's very seamless. However, you still have to touch each and every one of the, open each and every one of the reports because not all of the features that are available in FR are into reports just yet. One of the bigger ones that I've seen thus far is like the same as functionality that's in FR. That feature or function, if you will, it does not exist in reports. So you have to use I forget what we did for the workaround, but that one will cause the reports to fail. And Don may have another example. We had a client that migrated all of theirs recently, and I think he worked more on them. Do you remember what some of their errors that they got were off the top of your head?
off the top, well, I couldn't figure out some of them. So just rebuilding the report and then, the new report in reports was easier than trying to fix some of the errors. So some were, the books and batches and bursting definitions. I think it's better to just recreate those. Those really don't lift and shift over. So, and then we noted earlier too, that companies that use the annotation feature, you can lift and shift it, which is really just the report has a .des extension that lifts, pretty easily. But just checking all that, like you said, Melinda, all the
Yeah, you
features
just have
or
to open
functions.
them all.
Yep.
And the other thing I would note is if your reports are fairly simple and straightforward, it will be a very simple, straightforward process. It'll just migrate right over. You'll be able to open them. No big deal. If they're super complex, you may run into some hiccups and have to adjust some things, maybe update some of the functions you're using. But
What about like
I'd say,
calculations?
yeah, I'd say for the most part, they will just migrate right on over from what I've seen.
Yeah, the existing calculations come over, Jennifer. Yeah. So, but
Okay.
yeah, it's just
That's a
it
good
is.
question.
Yeah, it is. Probably in the next year or so, companies should probably get in, cleaning up reports. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I did fast forward through some of our slides, and everybody will get this slide deck, and most of them were, images and pulled from Oracle documentation. So I kind of moved us along as we were talking about migrating reports. And so here's just more information. And we do have useful links at the end that there is instructions on how to do the migration. And you may have already found that, but just in case there's anyone on the call that doesn't have some of that.
Hey, Jennifer, we have another question over here in Q&A.
Okay.
From a performance perspective, can we expect better performance from reports versus financial reports? Honestly, I haven't seen any difference between opening them in one or the other. That normally, I think, depends more on your outline than the report tool itself.
That's a good question. Yeah.
That is a good question. Yeah, I know I think some people are on this call. It depends too on your metadata and the number of intersections a report has to gather. I do think the reports are going to be better in that respect. Certainly, maybe not right out of the gate, but certainly as time goes on, because in the cloud applications, Oracle's always monitoring that type of question, really, and it should get better and better. And if it is a slow report, that's probably indicative of a design or something wrong with the metadata. I mean, companies should. It's easy to say should validate metadata, but there could be other indications of reports running slow.
Okay, and then I do have some points to remember around migration. And then Melinda mentioned we do have one other question that just came in. Melinda?
So the next one will kind of segue. I think it may segue us into our next slide. It's possible. I'm trying to remember our slides. I didn't memorize them this time.
Okay.
But the question is, can reports be consumed or leveraged by narrative reporting? And I think that's a great question. I think it depends on how you want to build everything out, because narrative reporting, as you know, it's its own quote application. It has its own URL. The short answer is yes. The difference is, so in narrative reporting, you have access, if you have multiple pods, like say you have an FCC pod, you have a PPCS pod, you can link into each one of those. Whereas reports that sits in the application, you can only hook into the application that you're in. So if you're in narrative reporting, you could also port over that report. I believe, if I remember correctly, it ends up being more like a snapshot, though. It's not a live report. It's as of the time that you take it when you're in narrative reporting. And I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
and I
think
pulled
this-
up one of our slides. Yeah, go ahead, Dawn.
oh yeah, no, I was just thinking too that if I follow the question, so everything that you have on the right side of this slide, the reports, in narrative reporting, it works the same way, except that additionally you can bring in, your planning app, you can bring in, any of the free forms, you can go to your ERP, you can go to S-based apps, and actually the narrative reporting allows you to bring in artifacts like a Word document, an Excel file, a PowerPoint file. So it really, the narrative reporting keeps everything the same as the reports, but it just brings in the full gamut of, the EPM applications and ERP and a little bit of, companies using S-Base for other type of OCI type applications, be it workforce or, statistical or reporting. It's baked in there. And one comment on narrative reporting that I thought, it's just my experience maybe, but a lot of applications, certainly in financial close, will bake in like statistics for, sharers, KPIs, aging statistics that, come in from, different input levels, which if you think about it, so you had to, build that into your metadata outline in, say, a financial close app just to report on it, where with narrative reporting, you can get a handle on bringing in different elements outside of, say, the financial close app that, can let the particular EPM apps do what they do best without, getting bothered with, extra metadata or dimension members. So it's, but to answer the question, yeah, narrative reporting is pretty much the reports, but it's just bringing it into a, newer library and a wider use of, call it a reporting package with process control around it. So.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. All right, so I'm going to jump back over to the what is the reporting package. So that slide I just showed kind of talked about all the different apps and how narrative reporting collaborates or pulls all the information from those various apps in. And then Dawn, you kind of spoke to this where you could assign the content to different authors and such.
Right. Yeah, and I think one of the ideas of this presentation is Oracle has, recently put a couple, webinar, or, they have like and the partner network, this slide deck, a lot of it came from there, and you spend an hour, 2 hours on their different paths. So we're sort of trying to brief it down here for people to sort of get an idea of what's going on with the reports in Oracle. So yeah, a report package is kind of neat. There's at the end of this, we have links on it where there's like a 5-minute video that you can see to get a little bit better idea of what narrative reporting and a report package will do. So it's
Yeah, that's a good video to watch. I know Melinda had mentioned that you had seen a comment that they think that the reports runs slower than FR, and I would be curious to get feedback. But
yeah, I'd like to poll the audience on if you're using reports and have used FR in the past, is that the experience across the board? I haven't had any clients complain to me, so I'd love to hear the feedback on that, just because I'm curious, because as we start migrating some of our clients that aren't on there, I'd like to be prepared for the results of that, if that's the case across the board.
Yeah. Well,
I don't have a method to pull the participants. I wish I did, but anyway, if people
we can use our little react button or rate, just
thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs up, thumbs down. Do we like it? Do we not like it?
we can have people chime in too. But one thought I have too, when you migrate it, there's sometimes I spent a couple hours trying to figure out what's wrong with a report that was migrated, and it just was easier to rebuild it. And I don't know if it worked better, but there could be something when it's migrated too, where a technique is maybe not brought over the way it should be. So. But
all right, so I'm gonna move along. Feel free, audience members, feel free to chime in or react if one is slower than the other. Oh, and you have one more question, Melinda, before I jump to the next slide?
Yes, I do. So the question is narrative reporting and Oracle Fusion Analytics, can they link up? I will be honest, I don't know the answer to that question.
That is in one of the links. The videos, okay. And it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah, definitely did an ERP. But yeah, if it's an Oracle, yeah, I think so. I'm just not sure if it goes into SAP, but I think it may, because if you have the configurations for data management in that. So, and if it doesn't today, I think they're going to probably evolve it to there.
Especially since that's Oracle, I would assume most of the Oracle backed applications if you're needing to hook into them from narrative reporting, there's probably a way because it's Oracle to Oracle. But, you know, Jennifer did answer that question. Thank you, Jennifer, for that actual confirmation. So the short
Yeah.
answer is yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Great question.
Okay, and so here's just some another note from Oracle. Why use the reporting package? And Don kind of covered a lot of this, but just collaboration, especially if you have different teams. And I think Don, you've had experiences where you might have different teams that are responsible for different parts of a reporting package or reporting book that maybe do quarterly.
Yeah, quarterly, monthly, I've been involved in. And certainly, I know a lot of companies will use other SEC reporting tools. So, but you know, you could use a reporting package just to get you know your MD&A in for your Qs and Ks. So, yeah, and then you can hand that off for the tagging of it, as it says at the end. But
Yeah, and I did get clarification from one of our Oracle representatives. But if you are an Oracle enterprise, like a cloud EPM client that has PBCS, FCCS, ARCs, or if you have the ability to have those, that you also have the ability to have narrative reporting. So it's not an additional subscription. But if you just have a bundle, or if you don't have a bundle, if you will, and you just have FCCS, then you may need to buy narrative reporting. But I would always point you to your Oracle account rep to get confirmation. But that was what he had mentioned as of late last night, is he said, yes, people have the ability to turn it on if they have the Oracle Cloud Enterprise Suite, the EPM suite. So what I think people will find interesting is the useful links. And so these will be sent out, as I mentioned. There's the designer guide, user guide. This tour, number 6, tour of narrative reporting, that link is the one that it's actually an Oracle YouTube clip, but it does mention Oracle Analytics. So it does point to that. And then also, if you are not a part or not signed up for Cloud Customer Connect, I highly recommend it. That is Oracle's site, but they have a lot of good information. They have webinars, they have monthly information. Dawn, I think you get a lot of content from there on a monthly basis anyway. So if you if an Oracle EPM Cloud client, that is a great resource for you. Or also US Analytics, that's kind of one of our areas that we like to help clients. So we would definitely be open to speaking with you further.
yeah.
Are there any more questions or comments?
Oh, I was just going to comment too. The intent of our webinars is try to, in Oracle, our session can be overwhelming, but I think collecting our thoughts and with the, collection of people on here, we can get a discussion going and seeing what works, what doesn't work. With Oracle, yeah, you can get the PDF or watch a presentation, but I think, it's tough to digest in an hour. But so webinars either we're trying to reinforce a little bit here and
share our experiences too.
Yeah, and brief
our
it down
real
a
life
little bit.
experiences. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is pretty much wraps up anything that we wanted to present to you. Are there any further questions? And I thank people for participating and putting their questions in the chat and the Q&A. That's been very helpful, and it makes our webinars a lot more dynamic. And we like doing these. It's a way to it's almost like a virtual user group. It's sort of like a virtual user group meeting for 1 hour, and you can just get the Cliffs Notes version of Oracle items that you might have questions about.
Yeah, I have a question. I don't know if anyone can answer it here, but how many companies are using narrative reporting? It's I see it as a great tool, but a little bit, you got to be very thoughtful to get into it. So I don't know if anyone on the call has experience using narrative reporting.
We aren't yet, but the goal is to use it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and I think that's where Oracle's going. Is their direction is, I think looking a little bit better when in respect to reporting, because I think for years, sort of I always called reports as stock things that you make bulletproof, repeatable, but I think the narrative reporting, it looks like it can open up the reporting a whole lot more than previously.
And you have a single place for people to pull their thoughts together, a single place where people know what's been reviewed, what's been approved, and then bundled for, a quarterly reporting package.
I have also a quick question. I'm not sure if this is the right form for it, but how does a narrative reporting compare to a tool like Workiva? Also assuming that we're at the Workiva application in itself.
So yeah, let me see if I understand the question. So do you do your SEC reporting with the
We do a lot of our management reporting using Workiva and audit reporting as well.
Yeah. So I think with narrative reporting, you could certainly, extract it to that. I don't know if you do that now, but it would bring in different components that you may not have now from Hyperion or the EPM tools. So yeah, narrative reporting, I think somewhere in there, it can export the XBRL tags and or just interface with, the other reporting apps. But
Thank you.
I don't know if that answers the question. I think even currently just with reports that integrates with that app, certainly for SEC reporting I've seen, although I've also seen the SEC reporters where they're going to, copy and paste more than, use the tagging because they trust when they review it. So it's, companies are different in how they want that done, but.
And then did we hear from Michael?
Yeah, hi. My question with narrative reporting is Oracle's, I guess, finally delivering us, the customer, a lot of information on, let's just say, the health of their environment, the health of the applications, the activity in the applications, really supportive information for administrators, for the people in charge of keeping the applications running, not pure financial data. Does narrative reporting link into those? Maybe there's separate databases. I don't know if Oracle actually allows us to get into the data that they capture, maybe from a monitoring perspective, but I wasn't sure for the things that Oracle is providing, because you could I see a value if we can customize the key information from various things that Oracle's already gathering, but they dump a huge amount just at us. And then we have to kind of filter to what we want to see. But my intent was to almost be able to do, like you mentioned, a reporting package around, hey, how did the close go? Not from a financial numbers perspective, but from a usage perspective. How are we doing supporting our customer type of thing?
Yeah.
That's a very interesting question. And I think more companies or, maybe that are heavier IT that help manage the cloud would want to know that. So
well, it's not even just managing the cloud. It's really, we're IT for our financial folks, and they, they ask or they say, the application is slow. Well, it's not really slow per se because you built a SmartView spreadsheet that was bringing in the entire database. So,
right.
What do you want? You want 3 seconds or what? I mean, that's just one example, but I wasn't sure if we can get to those data sources, equivalent of what you used to do with, just an ODBC connection to another data source. Like you mentioned, you can get to apps, different apps within one narrative reporting report. But the back end stuff, I was wondering if they're allowing us to get to in narrative reports.
Yeah,
reporting.
that's an interesting. I don't know the answer to that, but that is a great question, and I'm curious to see if there's some kind of overall monitoring solution or something that they have in the works.
Yeah, I mean, HFM, they have a great activity report.
Yeah,
unbelievable amount of information, but some of it's great for me. Some of it I'd like to tell other people about, and then that would be a great way to automate a monthly report process if we're able. Yeah, maybe I could export that file out to Excel, but that report is dynamic, so I can't count on where that information is, and it gets a little muddy to create a custom solution like that. So, all right, I'll try to go, scan the enhancement requests that customers have for narrative reporting. I work for GE and we use Workiva, and they're like, Mike, we're not using narrative reporting. I said, that's okay. We don't want to replace Workiva. I get that. But narrative reporting I see it as a great tool that'll bring value in other areas that, if we can get to that information type of thing. So
yeah, and I guess that's a bigger strategy too on, does the company or the organization, are they paying for Workiva and they're already paying for Oracle EPM that includes narrative, even though there would be some setup and configuration of it. But yeah, I guess that's a long-term strategy, but great point. Okay, thanks for your comment, Michael. I think there's one more, Melinda, Chad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of expand on Michael's comment a little bit and mention that I thought it was a great idea. And I was recently asked for insight on information about what users are using reports and which reports and how often they're using those reports. And that's additional information that I don't think we have exposure to right now from Oracle and the activity reports that are provided don't have that information. But Michael, it sounded like you were familiar with the enhancement requests over in the Oracle Cloud Customer Connect. And so I think that would have to be submitted as an idea request or enhancement request to that Oracle Cloud Customer Connect. But I think that might be worth submitting, and people have to upvote that idea as well in order for it
Yeah,
to gain traction.
That's the key.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, and great point you mentioned, because we get into that from an internal, even though we have a global, or whatever they're calling it now, licensing, we constantly get questions internally about what reports we run. Yes, they have demographics on performance of each report, but it doesn't tell you. You bring up a great point of who's using it, how often was it used, etc. So definitely information that we're constantly trying to pull together to provide manually today. So thank you for that.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks,
no worries.
Chad. All right. Anybody else? We have 4 minutes. Otherwise, you will get a link to the presentation and the recording. So thank you, everyone, for joining today. And you will get probably the link for all our other past webinars that we did this month in August. So feel free to check those out if you haven't. And we look forward to hearing from you when we do our next webinar. Not sure when that's scheduled yet, but we do look to do something similar. Maybe not 4 in a row in a month, but maybe once a month in sort of a virtual user group, if that would be helpful to folks. It sounds like it would, based on today's feedback and last week too. All right. Well, thank you for your time. That is it.
I did have a quick question. Does narrative reporting hook to Essbase as well? So if there's information in Essbase in a report or something like that, that we could combine that information?
Yes.
I think you can.
Yeah,
yes.
there's I mean, Oracle has a chart that says it connects to Essbase, some ERPs. Yeah, that's one of the features of it. So even into the Fusion ERP stuff. So
thank you
So
for that.
technically, the data that you're talking about, you could dump it into an Essbase database.
yeah, I was thinking that, but that's
Possibly.
the development stuff, right?
Right,
The answer is
yeah, I'm
always
sorry.
yes.
Or it
Is it
depends,
easy?
right?
Nobody knows.
Yes, I hear you.
Yeah, somebody's got to invent the easy button.
The answer is always yes. How much money do you have? All right. Well, everybody have a great Wednesday and a good rest of August. And thank you for your time. And we'll see you around the network of people. Bye, guys.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.